Button. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. For those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. For those of you that have joined us before, thank you for joining us again. Unfortunately, Tane is not here to join us today. He's not feeling too well, but hey, that's all good. The show must go on. And as always, we always like to start the conversation with something that we've put into a basket of knowledge over the last week or so. And I think what I put into my knowledge this week was I went to so in my current job, I'm doing a program called Enacting Te Aranui. So it's about how do we enact Te Ao Māori and Te Reo Māori into our everyday lives. And I was at the marae, and the facilitator played this clip that really just blew my mind. It was Will Smith, and Will Smith talking about fanning flames and throwing logs. And I was like, this is really interesting. And the concept comes from Rumi, and basically they said, who in your life do you have around you that fans your flames and throws logs in your fire to keep you going? And that really blew me away because, we have this thing in our lives that we are on a solo journey, but none of us are actually on a solo journey. There's people out there that are fanning our flames and throwing logs in our fire to get us going. And it really hit home for me. But conversely, it also asked the question as whose flames are you fueling? And whose fire are you putting logs on? And I thought this is a great analogy for the podcast today because our guest today is someone that is probably my talk about this, the fanning of the flames and the vlogs, and it's really powerful. And if you want to know more about the clip, I'll chuck it on. It's on my LinkedIn. Have a look, and you'll see what it's all about. It's really powerful. So my challenge for you out there is whose flames are you flowing, and whose are you not? Enough about that. There. Today, I'm very lucky and very privileged to welcome our guest. This is someone that we have been trying to get onto the podcast for a while, but as always, things happen for a reason at the right time. It's someone that we have been following from afar and watching how they've grown and just made an impact in different parts of their lives and on all that they do. And they might not like this, but the most delicious impact right now is what they've created in their brand right now, and it's something that I'm enjoying right now, which we'll talk about in a bit, and hopefully you guys get to enjoy that. But enough about that. There, welcome to our podcast, Joe.
Hey, kia ora, bro. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor and a privilege, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to share whatever story you'd like to hear.
No worries, Joe. For those of us who know nothing about you, who is Joe today? Today is the 18th of May. Who is Joe on 18th of May 2025?
Kia ora, ko Joe Harawira tōku ingoa, ko au te kai whakahaere mātua o Wai Manuka, ko Ngāti Awa, ko Ngāti Rangi, ngā iwi no Whakatāne ahau. So my name is Joe Harawira. Business side, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Wai Manuka, which is a global beverage brand. Born and raised in Whakatāne, and my iwi are Ngāti Awa and Ngāti Rangi.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Joe. And I'm just going to kick it off straight away. As we're sitting here today, who's been people in your lives that have been fanning your flames as you've gone through, I guess, the latest venture, which is the Wai Manuka?
The people who've been fanning my
Yeah,
flame.
fanning your flames. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably been, well, it's not even a secret weapon. That's the thing that's kind of ensured that we're still in business today. One woman that I'm going to single out in particular, and she's not going to like me mentioning her name. She's more low key in the background. Her name is Morag Mackay. She's been a part of the journey for the best part of the last kind of 3 years. She came on board as initially as a mentor to help with our export strategy, but since then she's become a coach and gone on to become a good friend. So Morag, I'm in touch with her 2 or 3 times a week. We're looking over everything, both from the business side of things as well as personal life. And she's one of the many people who have been there and someone who I want. It's one of the reasons why I'd love for Wai Manuka to be successful as a way of thinking. People like Morag. So Morag Mackay, you're an awesome human. That's for you.
Cheers, Morag. Cheers, Morag. Beautiful, fantastic. And we start off with speaking that you are, the CEO of Wai Manuka. But if we go back, let's go 10 years, 15 years. If I said to Joe when he left school that, hey, in 2025 you will be doing this, what would you have said to me at that point in time?
Yeah, highly unlikely. For me, man, like my background is I'm ex-military, so I was an average student at best when I was at school. And part of that was because I knew that I was always going to join the forces, and I knew that you didn't actually have to do that well at school. So I was like kind of sweet and just cruise through. So after a military career for about kind of 6 to 7 years, traveling the world and making some lifelong friends there and going through some amazing experiences. I ended up going to university, did an undergrad in sports science, which has always been something that I was passionate about. I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach for, say, the All Blacks. But then I ended up going on to do an MBA after that, worked for the NRL, Rugby League in the athlete wellbeing space. And then I ended up working for New Zealand Rugby with the All Blacks for some of that as well. So it is funny how things kind of work out, but in terms of Wai Manuka and doing my own thing, it was not really on the cards.
Yeah, and I love that because you know how you said there before, like, the military and maybe All Blacks, and it's come about around the way you ended up working in that space there, which is pretty cool. But I guess if we're going to touch on some of those key points in your life there, you go away to military. What made you want to go back to university as an older student? I guess at that point in time, like actually, hey, I've done my thing, going back to university. Maybe not. What was the push for you to go back and do that?
Yeah, it was at a stage in my career where I'd gone on a few operations, traveled around the world, and I was at a stage where, so I was an infantry soldier, and I was at a stage where I was going to stay in and devote all my time and energy to a career path within the military, or I was going to pursue a career in sort of health and fitness and sport, which is what I was really passionate about. I've always been into fitness. And look, a big part of that was that I grew up quite a sick kid, like I had asthma. And one of the things that our GP told me when I was a kid, I think I was about 6 or 7 after a recent asthma attack, he said one of the best things you can do is stay fit. So man, from that day, I was kind of like Forrest Gump, just running sort of everywhere. And so the military kind of suited me, and that sort of healthy living kind of lifestyle sort of suited me as well. So yeah, I went to university after 7 years in the forces.
Yeah, how is that? What is that like for you when you go into class and you're probably one of the oldest people there compared to, say, an 18-year-olds?
Yeah, look, at the time, I was you almost feel like a loss of identity, I'm going to say, because in the military, like you're in your own little ecosystem. It's like a bubble, and the two things that stand out for me from my time in the army that have set me up for life beyond that is number one, turn up on time. So they always say 5 minutes before place of parade, meaning that if you're not 5 minutes early, then you're late. And then the second one was do the mahi regardless of how difficult it is. So I think those two kind of pillars set me up well for university life. But it was just stepping out of the bubble into civilian world, and wondering whether or not I'd be able to sort of handle the academic rigor after an average performance when I was at sort of school. Just all the unknowns.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
so it's
those
so it,
for
it's so
me.
just it's so interesting, Joe, because in my team I have a fantastic colleague of mine who was in the Navy for 20 years as well, and he always tells me that when he stepped into the Navy, the loss of identity was so apparent because he goes, when you're in the Navy, in the armed forces, you have your brothers, you have your sisters, you know your routine, what you got to do, and then you step out of that, everyone's just doing their own thing. You're like, what is going on? So it's really interesting, but as you said before, those values and skills come through in different aspects of your life.
Yeah, totally. Like I actually found uni pretty easy, and I put that down to sort of that time in the sort of forces and having that kind of experience behind me.
Yeah, and in your time in the forces, I mean, I've done some reading about it, and you've done some really um, interesting missions. What is that like for you? We see stuff on the news and it's on the ground as you stepped into those environments. What is it like for you going through that there?
It was amazing. Like I loved my time in the forces, and it was really tough to leave to pursue a career as a student, kind of a thing. But what makes it amazing is so the military effectively takes young civilians, breaks them down, and then builds them back up into this thing that you hope to be sort of combat ready. But because of that sort of the stress response kind of things that happen within that environment. Yet the friendships that you form off the back of that, they last a lifetime. So it's a diverse community. Like I've got friends from all walks of life, but because we've shared the same sort of experiences, both in New Zealand and overseas, like it's a very tight knit unit. And even to this day, I haven't met any friends like how I had in sort of the military. And I think a big part of that too is like I guess you get to see people at their best and worst because of the pressure that you're put under at times. And those kind of unique experiences are the things that form those sort of bonds. And then, when you're going overseas together on operations, on exercise, again, you just become more of a sort of tight-knit community. So it's very much a whānau feeling within the military, and then that stays with you after your time in the services. I,
I love,
the little things that stand out for me though in the army though, like the little things like you might not actually know someone's first name because you're always on like a surname or a nickname kind of basis, and it not might not be for a few years later that you know, oh yeah, that's the first name. So and you have the most random, weird nicknames and the services, and it's kind of that sort of stuff that sort of sticks for me.
it's I had a chuckle because my dad's generation all had to do national service in Zimbabwe, like this is in Rhodesia in their time. And whenever they talk about someone, they have the most random nicknames. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, they'd walk in and be like, oh, there comes Sticks. I'm like, who is Sticks? Or some weird name. And you never know their first name. I'm like, what's their first name? They're like, oh, I don't know. We just call them. So when my dad got married, my mom would be like, who is this person? Oh, I just know him as blah. And it's so crazy that you said it. It seems to be like a universal thing.
Yeah, totally. The worst thing you can do in the army, though, is try and come up with your own nickname because if you
Yep.
suggest to someone that this should be your name, it's never going to be your name. And your name will be something that you don't want. And case in point, there was a mate of mine that I worked with for a few years together. We were in the same section. He wanted he was a bit of a hearty, sort of a Māori fellow from Otaki. And he was wanting something kind of like hardcore for his name. But because he was going on about it, everyone just got sick of it. And we ended up just calling him Snowflake, which was worse because like that's the worst. So
Yeah.
ever since like he moaned about it, it stuck, and to this day still called Snowflake. Fortunately, my name was just like an abbreviation of my surname, so the guys used to either call me Huts or H or Hara. I had one guy who called me Hara Peanut Butter. They had a funny one.
And I guess you got to take it as it comes, right? You can't take things too seriously. And I hope you like peanut butter, Joe. Um, oh, interesting, and it's really cool because, like you said, it's all the camaraderie, it's all the fun of feeling. And I'm going to touch on your Māori roots. Before we started recording, you spoke about how you're excited about Matariki and how that comes into your being. And what is it like for you, being Māori now, seeing a lot of places just embracing a Te Ao Māori, despite what the government's saying, and going, we could be better, but it's out there. We're seeing it more and more, um, because very different. 10 years ago when I came to New Zealand, it was a whole different world, but now we see it being more acceptable in a lot of places. Not the best, but still being accepted.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like there's a real rejuvenation of tikanga and te reo right now. And, I was kind of the wave that missed kohanga. So I didn't grow up knowing it inherently, and we didn't speak it a lot around home. But in the last kind of, I want to say sort of 10 to 15 years, there's been a marked kind of turnaround now to the point where it is seen as a strength now. It's something that's celebrated and elevated around the world. And case in point, man, we just did an official press release in the US for our product. Well, our US partner did it, and they wrote it all up. And basically, the angle that they went for was cultural heritage brand, Māori provenance story, lands in New York,
Yeah.
because it's something that's unique, it's different, and I feel that people now want to be connected to something that's bigger than them, like a community, like an iwi, a tribe. You want to feel like you belong to something, and that's what makes Māori culture, Indigenous culture, appealing on the world stage in particular.
Yeah, and I love that because it's a great segue into we're going to go all over the place here, but it's a great segue into your brand, the Wai Manuka. And I still remember on LinkedIn when you put a post saying, "Hey Tim, which one of these logos do you like?" And there was a clear winner in that there. Yeah, let's talk about Wai Manuka, how they came about, and what the passion is for this lovely product here, delicious product, like I said before.
Yeah, so Wai Manuka was actually the brainchild of, it started between myself and two good friends from Whakatāne. We were at a New Year's Eve party. And that night, well, I hardly ever drink alcohol. I've never been a big alcohol fan. That night, I was drinking pineapple kombucha and was most disappointed that it did not taste like pineapple. It weren't the words that I chose to use at the party, but I just sort of voiced my concerns with everyone there. And myself and Wayne and Lance, my two good mates, we turned to coming up with a solution. And by the end of the night, we landed on creating this beverage that was infused with Manuka honey that was aimed to be a celebration of New Zealand and Māori culture on the world stage. So right from day one, or that night, we'd set a pretty high benchmark in terms of where we wanted this brand to sit. And coming back to stepping into sort of this Māori culture space kind of a thing, it's even more important that you're sort of authentic about it too, because people know when you're not.
Yeah.
But it's something that we really love now because like we can just be who we are and that's accepted and it's the thing that makes you unique. So
Yeah, and how did you come up with this? I mean, I'm not going to ask if your trade secrets, but from pineapple kombucha to Manuka honey, what is the iterative process there overnight?
yeah, well, the first thing was because we knew that we wanted it to be a global brand. Manuka Honey is a renowned product worldwide, kind of a thing, for its reputation, its price points. So we knew that that needed to be in there. And the other ingredient that we were going to add was spring water. And at that time, we were going to call it the healing water of Aotearoa. And then we met with a compliance expert a few months later, and she was like, "There's no way you can call it that." Okay. But the interesting thing was excuse me, on New Year's Day, we did a bit of desktop research and we found that nobody was actually making a sparkling Manuka honey beverage as an alternative to sort of alcohol, and that kind of opened the door for us to sort of pursue that. To your point, earlier point, sorry, around entrepreneurship and starting Wai Manuka, I actually had an initial, I gravitated towards entrepreneurship in 2011. That was a pivotal moment for me. It was during the international study tour of the MBA. We went to Silicon Valley and we spent the day at Google. And so when you're in that environment and you hear like there's basically nothing that they can do. Like there's no idea that's off limits. And for me to be in that sort of that around that culture and that mindset kind of planted the seed for like, wow, man, this whole thing around entrepreneurship and innovation is it's pretty exciting. So that was 2011. And then fast forward to 2020, New Year's Eve, that was kind of when things started.
And again, I'm just noticing a trend here. At the age of 6, your GP said, "Hey, you've got to be you've got to be fit and healthy." Boom. And in 2011, you're in Google headquarters and proximity is power. And boom, in 2020, hey, you are doing a thing. But obviously, you've done some other things along the way. But what I'm picking up is that the words that you hear and the people you surround yourself with have an impact on your journey as you go, as they do all the time. But sometimes you don't think about it at that point in time. You just go, "Ha." Then later on, it's like, whoa, that moment was very pivotal.
Yeah, totally. And I think the exciting thing with that is it's so hard to like connect those dots looking forward. Like it's almost impossible to figure out what your next step's going to be. All you can really do is sort of embrace the moment that you're in to learn what you can, make the right connections, and stay true to your values, and then you'll land where you're meant to land.
Yeah. Talking about where you meant to land, so you 2020, you have a great New Year's Eve, and then along comes March 2020. What is that like for you when the world starts shutting down and you have this product that you are looking at creating or already created?
Yeah, it was actually the best thing that ever happened. So at the time, I was living in Wellington, working for New Zealand Rugby, and I came back to Whakatāne where the boys were to go into isolation. So it was during that period of lockdown, I think for like a good 6 weeks or whatever, that actually gave us the time and space to build the business and develop the recipe and to make the right connections because none of us came from the beverage industry. So we're
Yeah.
trying to figure it out as we went. And I guess, yeah, COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise because of that. It's everything after COVID that's been really tough. As you know, everyone else knows.
Yeah, that's pretty, and it's crazy, COVID had its good and its bad in that moment. As you said, you couldn't join the dots moving forward, but after that, the life changes quite dramatically. And but hey, the passion that you bring for this product is really beautiful. When you went on LinkedIn to ask about which logo do you prefer, was that you actively looking for your I guess crowdsourcing, or was it just because you're like, oh, I'm too lazy to decide, let the people decide?
No, naturally, I'm a wee bit of an introvert anyway, but over time, I've stepped into the role more of sort of leading the business and kind of sharing my thoughts with the community to see what comes back. I've got to say, like, since I've become more active on LinkedIn, it's just been a great connector and it's led to so many opportunities. So it was a genuine attempt to share this with the community to see what sort of comes back from it. And there's been a lot of amazing feedback, so much so that I've had to actually put the MPD on hold to go through all of the feedback to meet the right people, to create the right designs and to launch. And what initially happened was I shared it on my social media, on my personal social media page. I think it was on stories. And a good friend of mine who's a marketer, she saw it and she goes, "Oh my gosh, put this on LinkedIn now." I was like, "Okay, I'll put it on LinkedIn." So put it on there and then it just blew up. And yeah, I've met some pretty amazing people as a result of it, and the cans are looking pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I only asked that because there's a couple of other people that I've had on here. We had a chat and they always say, hey, we just go to the people. I had the founder of Moody, Kate, and she spoke about, hey, we just go straight to the people. We go to the people because they're the people who tell us exactly what they like and what they don't like, and boom, tell the people. And so when you put that, I was like, oh, this is very smart. This is someone that's just asking the people what they want, and the people have a choice, and it's really, really, really quite cool, very, very clever.
Yeah, you have to get comfortable with putting yourself out there, and like you've got to stop doubting yourself or questioning yourself. You've just got to do it, man, because at the end of the day, no one really cares. Just get it out there.
Yeah, and what's the worst that can happen, right? They'll just laugh at you and you just carry on. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Oh. What I also loved about when I was doing my reading about you is that you got a Premier's scholarship to go over and do some pretty cool things in the UK. What is that like for you as you started exploring these other codes? Because you said NRL was your jam, and then I read that you went and hung out with people that I don't like to talk about, but that's okay. That's Liverpool. Don't worry about it. I'm a Manchester United fan, but that's okay. Won't hold that against you. What is that like for you? You know
Oh
what?
man,
When I talk about the big scale, when you go into those scales of those clubs, it's just a whole different level.
yeah, it was just like a feeling of gratitude for being invited into that environment for a few days to learn how they run their programs and develop their players. Just to see it at that scale and that level of investment. Like I'm at the club, man, and guys are pulling up for training in like Lamborghinis and Ferraris. And I was talking to some, and like, I'm surprised that they didn't because I'm not a big football fan, and so like I just didn't know who anyone was. And I was talking to some guy who was like the captain of the English side or something. He was injured. He was doing rehab, but we
Yeah.
were just yarning like what you and I are, and I didn't know who he was. And then and then people were telling me after, and I was like, oh, I don't know who that was. But what I would say though is that it's just the level of investment that goes into developing their athletes is phenomenal. Like they had 30 fields, and they start looking
Wow.
at players from when they're about 5, 6, kind of 7 years of age, sort of preparing them through these elite kind of schools. Where I'd say that it sort of differs compared to the New Zealand, say, rugby pathway to the All Blacks, is that the challenge that a team like Liverpool had was they've got world class players from all around the world coming to the one team. They don't speak
Yeah.
the same language. They're not from the same culture. So that adds all these other dynamics that you've got to try and sort of work around. Whereas in sort of like a New Zealand rugby environment, the All Black environment, we all pretty much come from the same sort of communities and culture, so it's easier to gel. So I think for the staff there, that was probably in terms of my assessment of all, that's their biggest challenge is bringing people from around the world together who don't necessarily speak the same language, or who don't even get on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's so true. You don't see that, right? You just see a football team, but actually there's individual players that come with their culture, their language, their foods, their
yeah,
behaviors, and you're like, okay, how does this to be a coach or manager is a whole different ball game than just pass the ball.
yeah, yeah, totally.
I'm gonna point out the rugby jersey in the back there. Is there any special attachment to that particular rugby jersey that you have there
Yeah, that
that's
was
framed?
gifted to me when I left New Zealand Rugby to come and work in Wai Manuka full time. They finally figured out that I was spending more time working on Wai Manuka than I was in New Zealand Rugby. So that was my kind of like, see you later. No, yeah, it was a my general manager, my old boss, sort of, and the team presented it to me. Yeah, just to recognise my time there. I really loved working for New Zealand Rugby. It was a great organisation to work for, and I had some amazing experiences, man. Like, well, a little bit before rugby, actually, I was still involved in rugby as kind of a liaison. This was my first kind of interaction. And I was living in Palmerston North, got a phone call just after the 2011 World Cup. So this is early 2012. And it was from the manager for the Crusaders. And he said, look, hey, the guys are playing the Hurricanes at Mangatanuka. Can you come and help out for the day? I was like, oh, yes, sweet, I'll come. Because I was in Palmy, I was studying. And then he goes, I tuned up to the Rugby Institute and he goes, hey, look, man, sorry, but can you bring your cargo? One of the guys is going to be late. So can you bring him over and pick him up from the airport? And I was like, oh, I was a bit bummed because I wanted to go out
Yeah.
with the team. And he goes, and then I said to him, yep, sweet as, yeah, I'll do it. Who is it? And the guy goes, oh, yeah, it's Richie. And like they just come out of the 2011 World Cup and
Oh
he was
wow.
the winning captain. So I was sitting at Palmerston North Airport waiting for his plane to land and he come out. I was like, oh my God, this is the All Blacks captain. He's going to be riding in my car with me. And the funny thing was, before like he came to my car, I like went through the glove box and I like pushed like the two-pack CDs. We had CDs, two-pack like underneath the pile and like put like Queen to the top.
Yeah.
I shook his hand. We jumped in my car and we started driving out. And I was like, "Oh, hey man, let's listen to some sounds." And he goes, "Yeah." And then I reached into the glove box and I was like, "Oh, bit of Queen. Yeah, we'll chat Queen." And it was me and Richie for like 45 minutes driving out to Mangatanuka. So there's like moments like that during my time within rugby that sort of stand out for me.
Oh well, isn't I'm laughing because you talk about in the being in the infantry and then sitting with Richie McCaw, listening to Queen, like the two such different worlds within a lifetime.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it really my strength is around relationships and connections. Like I'm quite comfortable to have a conversation with the CEO of a Japanese listed company and old Kazi up the road here watching the Wiles. You know,
Yeah.
like I feel just as comfortable with both. So I think because of that ability to connect with people and build relationships, so it's made it somewhat easier. And you know, another example was it was the first time I was working with Sonny and I was at New Zealand Rugby and I was organising a production shoot. And I heard that Sonny Bill Williams he's a little bit interesting to work with. I don't know if I say that because I kind of know him, so yeah, sure, it's all good. Anyway, I heard it can be quite interesting because he like really prioritized his health and his fitness and all
Yes.
that
Yeah.
stuff. Carry on. So I organised the shoot. I ring him up the morning that he's flying from Auckland to Wellington, and I was like, "Oh, hey, bro, this is Joe here from New Zealand Rugby. Yep, so this is the way today's going to work. I'll pick you up from the airport at 9 when you get in. We're going to go to the gym for about 2 hours, and then we're going to go get a feed, and then we're going to go and do this production shoot for about 2 hours, and then we'll go back to the gym again for about another 2 hours. Does this sound good with you?" And he's like, "Oh, step up!" Straight away, we got on, so it was pretty sweet.
Oh, I love this. You know your people, right? You give them what they want, and boom, people are
Yeah,
happy.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, I love that. And again, people are just people, right? And if you listen to them, and everyone has their ways, and if you work with them in those ways, then everyone's happy.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. I'm talking about happiness. What is it like for you having that article written for you in with your American partners and being published the other day?
Oh
Uh,
man, it's a proud moment because 6, 7 months ago we were just focused on growing the brand across New Zealand, and now we're growing the brand across New Zealand, in New York, and in Japan. So why that's really exciting is because both two high value markets, both very
yes.
different customer preferences, both highly sought after. And then even in terms of the approach, it's exciting. So in New York, it's potentially a rapid growth market. And in Japan, it's more of a kind of a longer term approach that we're taking there. So it's an exciting time. to be growing a heritage brand with sort of global aspirations, particularly when you partner with the right export partnerships that believe in the product and understand the value proposition. The biggest challenge for you as an exporter, particularly for FMCG brands, is having the right partners in market who can represent your product every single day. So I feel really blessed that we've got the right partnerships both in Japan and New York, and I'm excited by what the sort of the future holds.
Yeah, I'm excited for you as well. Yeah, I told a couple of people that I'm going to be talking to this weekend, and they were like, "Oh, pretty exciting, pretty cool." I was like, "Have you had the drink?" They're like, "Oh, no, not yet." I was like, "Well, hard luck, 'cause I've got a box here." So,
Yeah.
no, awesome. The other thing that I want to touch on is, we haven't spoken about this, is your social enterprise. That's I guess giving back is also very big for you. And where did that come from, and how does that make you tick as you do, the rugby and the Wai Manuka and just being Joe?
Dude, you have done your homework. I wasn't going to mention it. Um, So Flow is a social enterprise. So a few years ago, I created a casual lifestyle wear sort of fashion brand, and basically it connected wearers of the brand with giving back to support a youth wellbeing program. So what it was people would buy a T-shirt, and then I'd sort of fund a wellbeing program. We were running it in a couple of primary schools in Wellington at the time. It was an 8-week course targeted to kids aged between sort of 11 and 12, so on the cusp of transitioning into secondary school. And it was focused on sort of things like self-identity, values, mindfulness, breathing techniques. So the first half of the session, I'd sort of take them through an in-class room activity, goal setting, and then the second half would go outside and just beast them with sort of physical activity and reinforce the messages. So I was doing that every Friday as a part of an 8-week course. That's real. That's the thing that lights me up, is that giving back kind of aspect. And somewhere along the lines, I'm going to reconnect Wai Manuka with Flow to reinvigorate it and bring it back something kind of bigger and better. So that's the goal. Like social enterprise for me is sort of where the future lies, supporting youth, hopefully inspiring them to sort of chase their own goals. That's the thing that lights me up, and that's what I want to contribute to again.
Yeah, I love it because what I love about that is because as we know, I work with lots of youth as well, and when we talk about well-being, people think about the gym, which is one aspect, but as we both see, it's actually about the mental well-being, which is a whole different conversation. Um, and
Yep.
it's really quite challenging. And yesterday I was looking at the report on how mental health is in our youth is just, one of the highest in the OECD. And I always just ponder what can we do and how can we change things up. And it's really beautiful to see someone like yourself out there that has that as a vision for as you move forward.
Yeah, I really feel for the youth of today because they're growing up in a really tough world, in an uncompromising world. And part of the problem, well, a big part of the problem is they externalize their self-worth. So they feel validated through likes, shares, follows, comments on social media, that kind of a thing. So we need to somehow bring that back so the focus is more on them and who they are, and that's the value. Not trying to be anyone else for anyone else. And I saw it in sport, whether it was league or rugby union, like players kind of buy into, they believe that they're the player, like, and they're judged on their performance and feedback from the media, kind of a thing. But that's just one aspect of them. Like that's not the whole of the person. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of working with young people to realize that they're bigger than this kind of one thing. There's more facets to them, and really, if they want to feel sort of happy and fulfilled, then you've got to look internally, sort of not externally.
Yeah, and I guess this is, I mean, this is a question and a challenge that we face is because a lot of, in fact, not a lot, all young people now have grown up digitally native. This is the world that they know, the world of, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the world of likes. And, I always pondered, I was like, how do I live in their world? Because I don't live in their world. I know the world before that. So I can easily say, oh, you don't have to worry about that there. But do they know the world without that there? And that's where the challenge comes into play. What is the world like? They don't. This is my own opinion. I was like, yeah, maybe there's got to be a different way, or what is our responsibility on changing that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question considering where things are going with sort of AI. And we're starting to see cultures being formed now before between humans and machines and AI now. Like this is the
Yeah.
first time in our history as a species that something like this has happened. We're forming cultures with other sort of entities. I think the key comes back to human connection.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that AI will never replace. It's as good as AI gets, like there's still something to be said around human connection, all the faults that come with it and that type of thing. So that's the one difference.
Yeah. I, I can promise you AI wouldn't be making Wai Manuka for me tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And with Wai Manuka, how did you come up with this really beautiful, distinct taste? Was it the three of you that sat together and, hey, we're gonna try a couple of things, or did you have a food scientist pop along as well? Or has Manuka been something in your family or your whānau for a while as you said before, it's a New Zealand, it's a traditional, it's part of New Zealand life. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it was just a really lucky opportunity that we got connected to an amazing food scientist who had come back from the UK for lockdown. So she brought her family back just in time. And then I had a friend at Massey University who passed on her contact details, reached out to her, sort of explained what we were about and what we were after. And then she started creating a couple of recipes for us to sort of choose from. And then when we were into that sort of concertina effect, we were going into lockdowns and opening back up again, we went up to Auckland to meet with her, and she made two options, and we just tried the first one. We said, yeah, no, that's it. So we
um,
didn't even try the second one, and the rest is history. And like, funnily enough, we're still in touch with Sarah, the food scientist. We're doing some work now on kind of other things, so she's become more of a long-term friend.
oh, I love it. And this is the second time that Massey University gets a shout out on actually the third time in the last few weeks, with Mrinali and her Eat Kinda cauliflower ice cream, and then we had Leilani as well, who was here last week. So Massey, the place to be with all the connections.
I think I tried the cauliflower ice cream like at a foodie event. Maybe it might have been a couple of years ago in Taranaki. We were there.
That's right. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
amazing. Like, I loved it.
Yeah. And the one thing that when I spoke to Mrinali recently, they have had to pull it out of the New Zealand market because nobody buys it here. So they have to go, they're shipping it off to the States. That's where the market is. And and this is something that I guess, as someone from New Zealand, the market, would love to be here. The market is great here, but in terms of the ROI, it's a very small market, and this is why I guess you're looking to go to expand if we're thinking about growing a product.
Yeah, totally. Like New Zealand's a great place to sort of test and learn, but for a product like ours, which sort of targets the sort of high-end premium sort of customer, it's global growth where we can really win. So, we could probably stay here, create a lifestyle brand and be done with it and it'll be okay. We could do enough to keep the lights on. But the reality is we want to partner with a multinational or private equity that's going to enable more people around the world to experience Wai Manuka.
No, great. And does this mean you are now getting to some interesting flights around the world and talking to some interesting people, or do you get to do this on your home in I'm guessing in Wellington, or you're back home in Whakatane? Where are you at the moment, Joe?
So I bounce between Bay of Plenty, my mum's place,
Yeah.
and Auckland, where 60% of our customers are. Got to say that, like, being a startup, trying to get to their next stage of growth is really tough. Like, so much so that I pay to work in the business. But the funny thing with that is, I've done more travel in the poorest time throughout my working career than what I did throughout my working career. Like, so I've been to New York, Japan twice, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Thailand, Singapore, all in the last sort of 3 years on trade missions and market research kind of trips. So it's quite buzzy how that worked out, where I'm traveling more now and I'm paying to work in the business than what I did when I was in paid employment.
That's up. And I guess we'll look back in 10 years' time and go, oh, well, that was interesting time in my life.
Oh my gosh, thank goodness for the bank of mum.
Yeah. No, I'm sure she doesn't mind. I'm sure she doesn't mind. As long as she gets a couple of these cases, she'll be all happy.
Mm.
Joe, your energy is so amazing, and you've spoken all the highs. And what about some of the challenges you've faced in your in not just with the business, but when you talk about the NRL or the All Blacks or in the infantry, some challenges that have really sort of for you that have shaped the way you have faced or changed life for you.
Yeah, I guess at the personal level, it would be around sort of that imposter syndrome, kind of self-doubt, what do they call it? The critic, the inner critic.
And I feel like, yeah,
So every kind of career that I've sort of embarked on during that transition, there's always that self-doubt that kind of creeps in. So that's something that I've sort of had to navigate through over time. But I feel like it gets easier as you do more things and get more comfortable with sort of who you are and what you represent. So that's one around sort of the imposter syndrome. The other one is uh, around sort of the journey being like lonely at times as well. Like people just see what's on social media and so forth and read the articles and see the exciting things. But the reality is, unless you're a business owner in sort of the FMCG space, then you know that that person is just like burning the midnight oil, and at times it can feel extremely lonely. So there's overcoming sort of loneliness, overcoming imposter syndrome. Within Wai Manuka itself, there's also sort of the tension and building a business with friends. That can be really tough in terms of defining your roles and having real clarity and accountability. So there's all these things that you have to kind of like sort of work through to come out on top and keep going. But fortunately for me, like come from a military background, come from a high performance sport background, so got a pretty good kind of foundation to be able to work through those things. But they're still there. That's
yeah.
just part of being human. It's just how you deal with them that matters.
And thank you for sharing that because a lot of people, as you say, they just see the shiny, glossy, smiley Joe, but we all go through the imposter syndrome. We all go through the doubt. The loneliness is real, and the reason why I want to share that is because as we spoke about before, people have this comparison effect that every one of us goes through those, and it's okay. It's okay to go through those, but what's not okay is not seeking help or people around or to actually admit it because that's the hardest thing. And so thank you for sharing that there because it is real. Real is human.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And like the one thing that you have to manage throughout the whole of the journey every single day is your energy levels. So you can only give to the business or whatever it is that you're doing, what you've got. So if you're not managing sort of your physical energy, your mental energy, your emotional energy, your spiritual energy, then you can only sustain that for a certain amount of time before something's got to give. And it's never a straight line, it's always oscillating. But as long as you're aware of that and you can put corrective measures in place, then generally you don't sort of stray too far.
Yeah, and I love that because that's basically too far to tap far the model. If you have
Yeah.
those all sorted, then well, you never get all sorted. But if you have that balanced, then life is all good. And Joe, how do you maintain your energy? Living and doing all these, keep being busy and the energy you give as a human. I mean, it's coming across on Zoom, so I'm imagining in person it'll be even more eclectic and more amazing.
So well, one thing I do is I try and protect my sleep quality. So sleep hygiene is important for me. Like, at times you do have to burn the oil because I'm working in different time zones. But what I do is my phone it switches downtime. I turn downtime on from sort of 9:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I'm no longer getting notifications and my phone's not buzzing. I actually always have my phone on silent as well. Like I used to get over the messages and the ringing and stuff. So that's one way that I kind of manage that. Generally, I eat pretty well and staying fit, getting out in nature, going to the gym, running. Every morning, I'll start my day with some form of physical activity, and that's been that way since I was in the military. So I was brainwashed early on, and I've carried on that sort of habit. And it's something that sort of sets up my day. Like I feel like as long as I've given sort of the first hour and a half of the day to myself to do physical activity, have a coffee or whatever, I feel like I'm ready to face sort of the day's challenges.
Love it. And there's the secret to look like you're 21 every day. Hey, Joe.
So like yeah, it's sort of my stress release. Like I do it for mental health. I don't think I've ever been this fit to be fair.
What's your go-to exercise? What's one that you really
Oh, good question. Probably burpees because most
uh, I,
people,
I knew
yeah.
you're gonna say I knew you're gonna say that. I was like, yeah, here we go.
If you don't have a lot of time and you're in a hotel room and you need to just smack out a quick workout, 15 minutes of burpees, you're done.
Literally, dude, on
Yeah.
the floor. On the
Yeah.
floor. That's you mean, right?
Get it done. Like they're so versatile. They smash all the major muscle groups. They get the heart rate up. So yeah, burpees will be my number one. It's kind of a love-hate thing.
Yeah, or we can call it hate hate. Yeah, hate hate is the way I like to think about it. I love it. And again, I'm coming back to Wai Manuka because I think this is front of mind today. The name. So you had a lovely name, the Healing Waters of which you had shut down pretty quickly. How did you then shift to Wai Manuka? And was there any kickback from anyone about using the name Wai Manuka?
Yeah. So my mum actually came up with the name Wai Manuka.
Oh, the Bank of Mum again. There we go. Boom.
Yeah, the bank of mum. She's also our an advisor.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we were talking to her about what we were doing and what we wanted it to represent, and she just sat there with a smile and then leaned back in the chair and then just said, "Wai Manuka." And then she also gave us the brand statement, which is He Taonga no Aotearoa, which basically means a precious gift
Gift.
from New Zealand. So yeah, that was thankful to Mum for that, and we also had a Māori creative artist who gifted us the Māori iconography that's wrapped around the bottle. So that pays tribute to the relationship bees have with nature and the making with Manuka honey. So there's a whole sort of kaupapa woven into it, and in terms of getting any pushback, so we're actually just working through trademarking the name Wai Manuka at the moment. One of the things that we needed to demonstrate as a business was whether or not it was that recognizable for us to claim the name Wai and Manuka.
Yeah.
One of the challenges of the committee, the intellectual property committee, was they were looking at both words in sort of isolation instead of as one. But we're now at a stage where we're in Japan, in New York now. Like it's just like just give it to us.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
um, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey to go through that part, the weaving of sort of the culture and that, and as sort of co-founders and brand managers, that it's a pretty big statement to live up to. So you have to approach it with a certain level of sort of tikanga, like respect kind of a thing, because
Yeah.
you set the bar pretty high in terms of saying this is who you are and what you represent in terms of the brand. But at the same time, it's exciting because that's the thing that keeps driving and pushing you forward is the fact that all of these, you've got a community of people that believe in what you're doing and what you represent.
And it's so cool because it's close to you, it's close to your roots, but it's also I mean, your mom named it, so hey, mom will be unhappy if things don't go well, right? Like, oops, sorry, mom.
Yeah, just hopefully she doesn't send me the invoice for it.
Exactly. She'll be like, all right, cool. The name, the loan,
Yeah, loans.
the nappies, yeah, everything, yeah. All adds up. Oh no, no, beautiful. So Joe, as you're sitting here today and we think about the we'll talk about two visions, one for Joe and one for the business. What do you in the next, I guess, in the next 12 months, where would Joe like to be and where would Joe like to see Wai Monica?
Um, I would like to see Wai Manuka have created a sort of early market traction in both Japan and New York. So what that looks like is we've expanded across kind of high-end sort of hotels, restaurants, cafes, and we're starting to knock on the door of some of the premium retail chains to get the volume out of the way. So in terms of the business, that's where I see that going. That's going to take like a capital raise. So we're currently going through a cap raise at the minute to give us the fuel that we need to drive growth. And the hope to like hire someone like a GM, for example, to look after New Zealand, can focus on kind of those global markets. So that's kind of where I hope things will go in the next kind of 12 months. In terms of me, I'd love to see myself getting more on the ground in both Japan and New York, building those face-to-face kind of relationships. Part of multiculture is face-to-face,
Yeah.
and like for me, there's no better way to build the relationship in our partnerships than being on the ground sort of 2, 3 times a year in each market, kind of getting out to the different channels and occasions, jumping behind sort of the stands at expos, talking with customers to really understand sort of A, the market, but B, sort of how you can contribute to the partnerships that we have to ensure that they thrive sort of in 3, 5, 7 years from now. Because this is really a long-term investment. So to get where we want Wai Manuka to be is a good sort of 5 to 7 year sort of horizon.
Yeah. And what I loved there was, you had the business vision, but also the fact that, hey, you want to be on the ground. It's nothing like being on the ground and actually meeting the people, talking the talk, walking the walk, and yeah,
Oh,
uh, yeah, being at those expo stands is always entertaining.
oh man, honestly, I need to get on the ground in Japan, that's for sure, because the first meeting I had with our Japanese distributor, they're massive, like they're on the stock exchange, they're huge. Like
Wow.
we had a Zoom meeting earlier this year and it was like 30 degrees the day that we had the Zoom meeting. I'd gone to the beach for a swim, come back and I had like this surfy singlet on, cap, and then the Zoom started and then there was like 12 Japanese business people all in suits. And I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be a train wreck. So we must have done something right because we're still going and
Yeah,
we're
man.
in hotels in Japan now. So
They must have been like, hey, this is the way we want to be. This is the way we want. This is, yeah, look at us, guys. They must have left again. Hey, guys, what was wrong with us? Why we are wearing suits?
well, I'm almost like trying to stop. I was going to stop the video and just say that I'm getting bad reception. We're just like
Yeah.
video. Too late, man.
Yeah, you're in. You're in. No, awesome, awesome, Joe. This is really beautiful. No, thank you, Joe. Joe, we've been speaking for about an hour or so. Time flies when we're having fun. Um, and there's so many avenues we can go down. But it is Sunday night, and I respect your time. But before I say goodbye to you and thank you, I'd love for you to share a piece of knowledge. So our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and every week we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our basket or kete for myself, for our listeners, anything from your world. You've shared so much today in different pieces of knowledge, but is there any one piece of knowledge that you go, hey guys, this is something that I would love to share because it's been important to my world?
Um, yeah, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I feel like one of the main reasons why sort of why Monica is where it is because you have to be obsessed with what you're doing. Like it can't be a sort of dip your toe in the water, sort of test it out, and oh, I don't know if I should. You have to be all in. It might be it's just the business and the nature of the industry, but unless you're fully in with what you're doing, sort of that motivation and to a certain extent that passion will probably only take you sort of so far because you have to learn to sort of push through all of the setbacks because for well, I'll be honest, every day I sort of wake up in the morning and there's this sort of mirror staring back at you that's all these things that's asking you questions that you need to do today kind of a thing and you can't bury your head in the sand. You can't pretend it's not happening because it is, and you just have to deal with it. So yeah, it's putting everything into what you're doing. It's backing yourself and being obsessed. Might be it's probably like it's a hard word to use, and I'm not comfortable using it, but that's you saying that you're going to take up my Sunday. Well, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be working till like 10 tonight anyway. So
Yeah,
there are no weekends.
yeah. And I guess that's the reality of running your business, right? Running your own business, there's no such thing as a weekend. It's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
you have to do it. Otherwise, there's no one else that's going to do it. 7 months ago, we were growing the business in one market. Now we're growing it in three with no change in resource. So what
Yeah.
do you
What are
do?
you gonna do? Exactly. Yeah. And but I love that, I think, it's interesting, I think we as a society we don't like the word obsessed, but if you think about it in a positive way, if you're not obsessed about your own what you believe in, why would anyone else want to do it? Why would I believe in it if it's not my thing? So I think like you said, you've got to go hundreds, otherwise nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, man, just back yourself and go all in and don't look back.
Yeah.
And
And
then it gets to
felt
a point where like you just get in so far that the only way is forward. So you just
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's
like
like,
it's going.
yeah, you fell fast, fell forward and keep going, right? This is it. You have no other choice.
Yeah.
I mean, New Zealand Rugby have already given you the gift. Like, no, you can't come back. We've given you a gift. This is it. You're going one way.
Yeah, and to be honest, you said it before, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm not a doctor working on the emergency floor of an ED. Like
Yeah,
there's going to be no loss of life with the decisions that we make for Wai Manuka, whatever happens. It's going
yeah.
to be, you know.
And I love that because that's what I tell my team every single day when I go to work. I was like, hey guys, what's the worst that could happen? And they're like, is someone gonna die? No, okay, who cares? Meeting's gonna
Yeah,
be delayed,
I
you
think
know.
honestly, we live in one of the most progressive countries in the world, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Sure, we've got our challenges, but I mean, like, we live in a country where, like, there's just so many green lights to do what you want to do, just go for
That's right, exactly. Yeah, no, I love it. Just be obsessed and go for it. Go for gold.
it.
Beautiful. And Joe, for people who are listening to this podcast, that are based in New Zealand, where can they get a taste of your product, and how could if they wanted to taste some of it?
Yeah, sure. So Waimanuka is available on the online store. We can do actually a discount code for the show, so we can do a promo there. And it's also available in supermarkets, so New Worlds, Farrow Fresh in Auckland, around the country. Look for it at a Matariki event near you coming up soon.
Oh, I can't wait to see that there at the Mātakere events. Yeah, so and I'm going to be honest. This is a pretty amazing drink. Joe kindly sent us a box, and I was like, I'll save it till I start on Sunday, but I haven't saved it. I kept on drinking it because it was too good to just leave lying there. So if you haven't tasted it out there, go and grab a bottle. Jump online, get some for your family, for your whānau, and get some for Matariki because it's pretty amazing, and you'll be smiling. And it tastes better than pineapple kombucha. Just saying.
Kia ora, thank you so much.
Kia ora, thanks, Joe. Thank you for jumping on. For anyone out there who's listening, thank you for jumping on. Hopefully, you have enjoyed listening to this podcast here. I've learned so much today from Joe, the reality of who Joe is as a person, the business. Um, yeah, so until next time, don't forget to be safe, don't forget to keep smiling, and don't forget to put something into your basket of knowledge. Till next time, ka kite. Bye, everybody. Peace.
Ka kite.